exactly the right question because Docker initially was an extra layer around Elixir and allowed people to use Elixir very easily without having to get down to the arcanes of Linux containers. And so the debate is not really Docker vs Elixir, but rather Docker on top of Elixir and soon, hopefully, Docker on top of Solaris zones or Docker on top of FreeBSD jails, which are other containerization techniques that are found on other operating systems. And the reason why it's getting so much traction like now, like why now? Why not like 5 years ago? It might be a timing thing in the sense that when we started .cloud, which was the kind of the the ancestry of Docker, uh, it was very difficult for us because the kernel mechanisms that containers use today were not exactly ready yet. Containers have been around for a while, that's true, but in a slightly different form. They were a little bit, let's say, a little bit rough. So some people have been using them in production for really big workloads for a long time, but they were not really generic containers in some kind of way, in the sense that, okay, if you use them specifically for stateless web application hosting, then they work fine in some scenario. But if you say, okay, let's do containers so that we can run everything, then you can hit some trouble. And so,
So let's actually just skip to, like, at the end of your presentation, you were talking about the benefits of container, or specifically Docker containers. What are essentially two or three of the key benefits people need to know if they've never used Docker containers?
the benefits of using Docker containers, well, there are many of them.
Well, you were isolating them at the very end of your presentation, so
Right.
pick your two or three that are the most key.
Right. I wouldn't know if they're really key or not, but some of the things that I find exciting are enabling immutable infrastructure. Because
And explain what that means.
Right. So it's a concept that I think that the first time I kind of that I was hit by that concept was by reading about how Netflix deploys to production. So the idea is that, okay, each time we want to change a single line of code somewhere, even if it's something as trivial as some CSS fix, you offer new VM images, you start a new pool of servers, you switch traffic over to the new servers, and then you get rid of the old servers. It sounds a little bit extreme, especially for small trivial fixes, but it has actually tons of advantages. One of them, for instance, being that if you need to roll back, that's easy because the former servers are still here. Because rolling back a code change is usually pretty easy. Rolling back a major package upgrade is not. If you've updated OpenSSL to deal with the OpenSSL exploit of the week and you need to roll back because actually the security fix breaks like 90% of your customers' deployments, then you have to say, okay, what's the version that we had? Is it still available in the package repository? Well, if you just created a bunch of new servers and send the traffic to them, if something goes wrong, you can still go back and change your load balancers to send traffic over to the old servers again.
So let me switch the conversation to platform as a service, or PaaS. Gartner referred to it as the new wave for 2015. It's going to be a major change in 2015. Do you agree? And if so, how do you think it's going to help the DevOps environment?
PaaS has often been seen as kind of new thing so that devs can do devs and don't have to deal with maintaining database and do ops and everything. I think it's partly true. There is one thing that we have to keep in mind is that when you do PaaS, you just move the problems in a different area. But if you have to build and operate a lot of apps, then it can be a good thing because instead of having 100 different problems, now you can have 100 times the same problem. Because instead of having 100 apps, each with its own special custom MySQL, Postgres, MongoDB, Redis, HBase, whatever data storage, you say, okay, let's standardize everything around Postgres and Mongo, for instance, and say that's how we're going to store things. And instead of having to know how to run, scale, and manage 1 million different databases. Now we just have to concentrate on a smaller number, which means we can do a better job at that. We can automate more easily because usually when you only run like one Postgres database and you want to do replication, of course you should script things, you should automate, but when it's only one, it's kind of hard to get to it. So there is a trigger effect. If you have to operate dozens, hundreds of the same thing, then obviously you will automate, write scripts, and make sure that this works smoothly. So I think that somehow this is This is standardizing, so that we use always the same thing in the same way, so we can kind of promote automation through PaaS in a way.
Jerome, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, just one last thing. If you don't mind, I may